Christoph, you have been talking about practices and concepts, but you spend more time on talking about concept of negotiation. Why is that, and why you are emphasizing the concept rather than the practices?
Actually, it's an interesting part, because practice is very important. But for me, the eye-opener in how I learned about what really makes the difference between a good negotiator and a great negotiator was when I, after applying negotiation for quite some time, learned about the techniques, the tools, and the specifics behind negotiation. And so with these principles, all of a sudden it became clear to me, oh wow, now I know why things do work or don't work. And luckily it was it comforted me in, I know what I'm doing in the most part. But as I said earlier, there are a couple of things that I did wrong, and that was when things fall apart in negotiations. So with the help of the principle and the theory, I was able to eliminate those and improve in my negotiation skills as well.
During negotiations, what have you discovered about yourself?
It's actually also interesting. There's always learning included in all of that.
Absolutely.
And so one thing, and I'm coming back to one of the topics that you came up with earlier, is listening skills. I thought that sales and negotiations are very much about talking. Yeah, and I see that most people actually do that. They talk and they don't listen enough, or when they listen to be able to respond. They listen for the little fault that comes in, and when they got that, they are thinking about their responses already, and they don't hear the whole story. So what I discovered for myself was, well, you need to listen. You need to listen empathically, allowing to find out more about the other person's motives and needs, so as to be able to respond then. And yes, I can write down things, and that is something that I've learned. I'll write down a couple of things while the other person is talking, which also helps them to see, well, yeah, that person is interested in what I have to say. Wow. Just a little bit of 2 or 3 scribbled words make a huge impact, and that is something that I learned in my negotiation, and that's what I'm trying to pass on here to the audience.
It's very interesting that you mention listening. I wasn't a good listener. And in fact, I had an opportunity to have a radio program, a fortnightly radio program. And I started doing, and when I was interviewing people, that's when I actually learned to listen and think at the same time, because you can listen and then you're not thinking, but then when you are interviewing someone, that's something that, I have to listen, I have to be in the same time, but at the same time, I also have to think about the next question, that what I want to get out. So I think that sometimes just having, not necessarily an interview, but just like a question and answer is helping to improve your listening.
Very much so. I mean, the easiest part, and I think we've all been there, is, you ask somebody, how are you? And they say, well, actually, I'm really bad. And you say, oh, good. Yeah, me too. Yeah, because you didn't listen to the answer. Because 99% of the time, people respond, how are you? Yeah, good. Okay, yeah, good. Yeah. So once that person really reveals that, it's a little bit problematic. Yeah. So yes, it does help that you talk with people, that you listen, and your partner, your friend might be a good source. Or if you don't have one, try and go into a bar and see how it is interacting with somebody you do not know yet. Yeah. Don't want to talk about dating principles, etc. But to some extent, there is some truth in that. Is also some kind of negotiation. Yeah, I mean, I like you, you like me. Maybe I have to find that out. And how can we do that? So yes, that can also be a very interesting and very important listening exercise. If you don't want to go into my courses, of course. So.
Absolutely. Now, you were talking about the myth of natural negotiator, but you also say that anyone can be a good negotiator.
Yeah.
How come?
Well, again, as I said, the learning comes through the application, knowing the principles and going beyond what you believe about yourself, what you believe about the topic, and moving outside of the box. And however small or big that box is, in lots of cases, it's still a box, full of stereotypes, full of assumptions, full of thoughts about yourself. What, am I good, am I not good? All of that makes up this little box that makes up you and who you are in negotiation. And so in learning about yourself, in learning about the techniques, those things help you to really move beyond and become a great negotiator. And so, yes, I believe that sometimes good negotiators are actually in the way of themselves of becoming great. And that is part of what I do in my coaching programs. That it's true in negotiations just as much as it is in other parts of leadership. That sometimes you're standing in your own way because you think, hey, I'm already so good, what do I have to learn? And you're blind to the things that could actually help you improve.
Very interesting. Now, you were talking about the international aspects of negotiations, but it was surprising for me that you didn't go into specific cultures and nationality. What is the reason behind it?
Well, again, if you look at certain cultures, you oftentimes work with stereotypes and you work with something that is very negative, or rather negative than positive, in terms of who these other people are. Again, I mean, we all have these examples. I bet that Hungarians have a certain stereotype about Romanians. Just imagining that. And is that true or not? Sometimes yes, because this myth doesn't come, I mean, this stereotype doesn't come from nothing. So there are probably some Romanians who are really like the Romanians that the Hungarians think are like Romanians. But it might be interesting to think about, is that one person that I'm talking about or talking to really exactly that? I mean, Gabo picked us up in a car that had Romanian license plates. And he said, yeah, people honk at me, they try and push me off the road, etc., just because I drive a Romanian car. So, stereotypes. But he is not Romanian. So that is exactly the question about, okay, so stereotypes might be right, might be wrong, so know your assumptions and move beyond them. And that's actually the biggest part in that international aspect of. At the same time, and something that I did not cover, bear with me for 2 minutes, is you can use those stereotypes probably positively if you know about yours and theirs as well. What stereotypes could the Romanians have about the Hungarians? And if you are different, that might actually have an impact to get over the difficulties that you might have in that relationship. Just because you know what their associations are or their assumptions are. So again, you can use that to play on that if you want. So you can use it both ways. But the important thing is you have to know about them. You have to know about yours and have a relative good idea about what theirs could be. And then you can use it. And when you use it, you have more power. You can then work it out to a better deal, maybe to a slight advantage on your side. Value is never a fixed something. Value has to do with perception and with what I associate with it versus what somebody else associates with it. So, again, don't assume that your association with that value is also what the other person's association is. And use it as a lever. I mean, again, very nice. So it is a great exercise. It's also a great exercise in trying to see what pricing strategies different people use. We didn't go into pricing strategies here, so that is also part of my program, that we look at different ways of doing a pricing strategy. So, for example, 10, 8, 6 is not a good strategy because you definitely know what comes after 6. What comes after 6? 4. Or he jumps to 2, because you walk away. So, definitely. And on 2 euros worth, it's an easy thing. And this is why practice in a safe environment is so important. Yeah? Because I mean, we talked about BATNA or bad no. We talked about the wham. Yeah? I mean, this is exactly what you used. Yeah? You did your walk away moment. Yeah? Poof. Yeah? And surprisingly enough, when you use that power, the other person loses his or her power, potentially. Or if they're well prepared, they say, well, the deal might come back. So very, very interesting in all the principles and all the concepts that we talked about here. Yeah.
One more question. You offered on your last side half-a-day negotiation support.
Yeah.
So I want you to go out and put your business cards into that box, because you can end up having half-a-day support with Christoph. But is half a day enough to be a good negotiator?
Well, it just depends where you come from. That's the first thing. Half a day is probably never enough. You never stop learning. I mean, that's true for me just as much as for all of us. Gabo was talking about being coached, even though he's been successful and even though he's making lots of money. So no, the learning never stops. So what I try to do is give an opportunity to learn specifically, because that I think is important. It's not about somebody telling me some great concepts, etc. It's the application, and that's we talked about this at lunch. The application that goes beyond the hype, beyond the wow, this is so great, and yes, I've got a couple of concepts, because that wears off probably in, I don't know, 48 hours or maybe a week. But the ability to have my own individual problem being discussed with somebody probably is worth much more, because that's where the learning starts. Learning is the application and making it mine, so appropriating the learning into my own way of doing it. And that's why I'm offering that, because I think there is more to do than just hearing an hour on negotiation. And so, yes, there are multiple possibilities to do that. There's workshops coming up, so wait for my website. That'll be up by mid-February, and then I'll put out a workshop series. Maybe even if there's people interested, we can do it here in Budapest as well.
Absolutely. Thank you, Christoph, for being here.